Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 314.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we're going to talk about something that we really actually haven't talked about a ton, or we haven't talked to this type of entrepreneur, I think only one other time as far as I can possibly remember. Now, what's really cool for me is that today's entrepreneur happens to be an owner of what would easily be my favorite restaurant, and I am always there. Some of you are thinking Starbucks right now. Nope. I'm going to let you linger on that just a little bit more as I tell you a little bit more about him. He likes to do things in pairs. What do I mean by that? He's got 2 Guinness World Records. He has 2 of these restaurants. And what's really, really interesting is that this time he went to overachieve and he has 6 children. So 2 plus 2 equals 6 in this particular case, which is pretty cool. But what's more important than any of that is that he's got lessons. He understands adversity. He understands how to lead, and most importantly, thinking different. Now, if you're wondering what restaurant, I'm still not going to tell you yet. I'm going to let him do it. Help me welcome Mr. Arthur Greeno. Arthur, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Now, you heard me mention a particular restaurant. I won't tell them yet because I want them to sit in suspense just a little bit longer as you answer the first question that I tend to ask everybody. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. So I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Specifically, when you think about a superhero, they get, dressed up. Maybe they fly. They've got special skills and abilities. And entrepreneurs, we feel the same way. Occasionally we get dressed up. Maybe we don't put on a cape, or, well, maybe we do put on a cape. At the end of the day, though, just like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. A superhero has a beginning. They have an origin story. So what we want to know is, before the world records, by the way, that had to be one nice cup of sweet tea. But before the world records, before the authors, before the books, before the 2 stores and all of these other things, we want to know, who is Arthur Greeno?
All right. Well, before all of that, Arthur Greeno was, honestly, he was kind of lost. He struggled with his identity. It's funny that you mentioned superheroes because I love superheroes. In fact, I'm on the board for some guys who started up a Comic-Con here in Oklahoma.
Nice.
Yeah, and so my office is plastered with superheroes, and I kind of look at myself kind of like Spider-Man.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah, and so I looked at the adversity that Peter Parker had, even though my parents weren't dead, didn't die at a young age. My family struggled with alcoholism and a lot of other things. And so I had a really hard time trying to figure out what I wanted to do or the direction to do it in.
Got it. Okay. So what were some of those early, we'll call them early warning signals that helped you to begin to discover, if you will, hey, I've got a superhero ability here?
Yeah, for me, it was that when I looked at the people that I surrounded myself with, or that my family surrounded themselves with, I realized that's not the kind of people that I want to be hanging around with for the rest of my life.
Many people don't want to hang around their family, but okay, you might want to expound on that just a tad bit more.
Well, I didn't necessarily mean my family. However, there are times in every relationship that you wish you weren't around your family. But it was more like the people that my parents associated with.
I see.
The people, they tend to hang around with people that, well, they like to get drunk a lot, or they would spend their time just not being productive at all. They'd be running the race, but yet they wouldn't be going anywhere. And I said, you know what? I want to make sure that we not only are surviving for my family, but I'm taking care of my family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the big things. And I said, you know what? The people that are around me right now aren't going to teach me those things.
I see. So there was a conscious decision for you. It's like, look, I need to change the environment in which I'm naturally in.
Yeah, it was not only was it a conscious decision, it was very, very deliberate. And I had to look at the people that I surrounded myself with and who my family surrounded themselves with and say, what kind of people do I want to associate with? And if we're to look at, superpowers or whatever, that's one of the things I've really learned over the years is that if I need to learn something, I need to find those gurus, those Yodas, those people that are out there that have the knowledge that I need. And how do I connect with them?
I never thought about Yoda as a superhero, but I don't see why not. I like it. So let me ask you this though. What would you say then has been that path? I mean, many times people, well, at least when they're getting started or when we're getting started with something, we hope and believe that the path to success is just going to be one straight arrow in the positive direction. Describe for us what that journey has been and looked like for you.
Well, what it looked like for me is, when I was in high school, and I was, that was when I really first made the decision of I want to surround myself with different people. So I did. I looked at those who were successful in high school, who were successful in life, and I surrounded myself with them. And it was not an easy path at all, especially with the background that I had. I remember at one point I was trying to convince one of my friends. I was trying to convince his mother to allow me to be his friend.
What?
Yeah, she knew my background, and I like to use, how should we say, a lot of colorful metaphors. And in their family, they didn't like to use those. And but that's the kind of environment that I was in. So that's how I grew up. But yet, I saw how I was becoming a better person when I hung around with others. And I understand her perspective, because honestly, I'd be kind of thinking the same thing with my child.
Right. So, interestingly, you got good at sales in a completely different way.
I did. Well, part of that also when I was in high school, on top of the alcoholism that ensued my family and other things, I got diagnosed with scoliosis.
Oh.
And so I have an S curve. My back is. If you look at the pictures, you'd probably think, man, how does this guy even stand up? Mm. But when I was in high school, I remember standing in the doctor's office, and he said, we're going to fit you with a brace that goes from your chin all the way down to your pelvis. And I was thinking, man, this has got to be a chick's magnet.
Okay, I'm listening.
And so I remember literally standing there just crying in the doctor's office, 17 years old, of course, with
this was at 17? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
16, 17. And,
oh no.
And I was furious about it. But here's the thing is that when that happened to me, when you're wearing a back brace like that, there's no way that people aren't going to notice you.
Yeah, true.
There's no being a wallflower. Everybody notices you. In fact, one of my, I learned with that back brace that if I would drag my feet on the ground, I would collect a lot of static electricity. And one day I was walking up to my friend, and I was dragging my feet on the ground. I had my arms outstretched with one finger out there, and I knew that if I got close to my friend, I could zap him. And I was dragging my feet, and I was about to touch him, and I did that, and I zapped him, and it was awesome. But his brother and his brother's girlfriend was standing on the other side of the auditorium, and she looked over me and said, "Oh, look at that, that poor handicapped boy." And my friend's brother just kind of laughed and said, "Oh yeah, that's Arthur." And he never, for years, he never cleared that up with her until, later she realized that I was, somewhat normal.
Right. Somewhat normal. Yes. Yes. That's interesting. Okay. So this puts you in a different perspective, for sure from the beginning. Now, talk to us, Will, if you will, a little bit about your work history. And of course, now we're going to have to tell them what it is that is my favorite restaurant that is out there. So tell us a little bit about your work history, if you will, and how it leads to where you are today.
Sure. Well, my work history was when I was 16, 17 years old in my back brace, I actually started working at McDonald's.
Nice.
Now, I'm assuming that's not your favorite restaurant.
No.
They do serve a good burger.
Really? Maybe in Oklahoma, but not out here.
If you go to the right ones, but don't tell the cows that, because they get really upset when they hear me say things like that.
Of course, they want you to eat more chicken.
That's right, they do. They do. So I went right from McDonald's to work in my first job, making $6 an hour as a cashier at Chick-fil-A.
Got it.
So I started working there the day that they opened at a mall location here in Oklahoma, and at that point I kind of fell in love with the company.
Interesting. Now, what made you? What would you say then gave you the ability to fall in love with the company? What was it?
Well, here's what happened for me, and so I explained a little bit about my family and our history, and one of the big pivotal points of my life was I'd worked at Chick-fil-A for a little over a year. My younger sister, she just turned 18, just had her second child, and she was down in Dallas. She just got her GED, and she was in a car wreck and passed away. And I went down, and so I went down there, and I was the only one with a credit card that could pay for her funeral out of my entire family. So I paid for her funeral. I came back home, and the owner operator there looked at me and said, "You have the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're trying to work 4 jobs. You're trying to support yourself." I was an art major at Oral Roberts University at the time. Never planned on owning a business ever. And he said, "I'm going to send you on a vacation." And so I actually went to a grand opening for a Chick-fil-A, wore the chicken suit.
Nice.
Time. Yep, that was amazing. But what I learned is how Chick-fil-A loved their customers, how they loved the operators, how they loved the team members. And at that point is when I really fell in love with Chick-fil-A. And I said, I want to own a Chick-fil-A. And so I went back to my old toolbox and said, if I'm going to do that, I need to surround myself with people that own Chick-fil-A's.
Right.
So when I came back to Tulsa, that's the first thing I started doing is start associating with any of the owners in the area and any of the owners in Oklahoma City and anyone that would come to town. And I would grab them and I would ask them questions and what am I supposed to wear? How am I supposed to dress? What are they learning about? And that's when I learned the value of books because frankly, in high school and college, I just read the books because it was required.
Right.
And what I heard was that Chick-fil-A loves a learner. They love people who are learning things. And so I got the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which was the trendy book at the time. Mm-hmm. And so when Chick-fil-A asked me, well, what are you doing to learn? And I said, I'm reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, at that time, I probably only completed about 4 full pages in that book, but I was very honest. I was reading it.
Right.
And that's when I knew, I said, you know what? I want to own a Chick-fil-A. And that's where kind of my road started.
Got it. Now, this is interesting. One, besides the fact that you can just have Chick-fil-A anytime you want, and that's just awesome to me. The whole thought process of going from, McDonald's to Chick-fil-A, that's a completely different environment. But it speaks to the fact that something about the culture in which when we're building a business, the culture, and that could be one of the reasons we attract the star talent or our next contractor or vendor that we need. What was it about the culture that when you say it's clear that they love their customers, how can we as an entrepreneur adopt some of those things that can help our customers go, hey, they like us, they love us, they and they can have that same type of experience or feeling?
Sure. Well, I think the simplest way is to kind of boil it down to is at a lot of, if you think about when you go to a lot of fast food places or other places, if there's something wrong with your order, sometimes you need to get in a big argument with the person just to get, that piece of cheese that you were expecting, or maybe a refund.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the philosophies behind Chick-fil-A is to be generous. And so if somebody has a sandwich that isn't right, I don't care. When we say it's not right, it could just be the bun doesn't look right or it doesn't taste funny. We're not going to argue about it. The object is, let's just fix the situation.
I like it. Yeah, I totally like it. It's one of the reasons it's pretty funny. One of the reasons I actually go to Chick-fil-A is for the consistency and it's been one of the most consistent restaurants I've ever experienced and I've been many different places, many different states, many different stores. It's almost like, hey, right I get off the plane, where's the Chick-fil-A? And yet, without fail, it's one of the few places where you order the food and before, like, you're done ringing up, the food is ready. I'm like, that is awesome for me personally. And from a customer standpoint, I'm like, yes, these people are on it. And that gives me that same feeling. My question to you is, in order to deliver that experience, one has to learn systems and things of this nature. Coming from your background, what was that like?
Well, at first it was really tough because I had never taken a business class before in my life.
Right.
And when I got the very first store that I had. And so, I had the mentality of, oh, we can just make this happen. We'll fly by the seat of your pants. But I learned very, very quickly how important systems were. Mm. And, systems all the way down from, that at my restaurants, we have a system, a checklist that we check the bathroom at certain times of the day, believe it or not.
So when it comes to learning these systems and executing them, what were some of the challenges you faced? Because many entrepreneurs, we fly by the seat of our pants. We're just ready to get it done, get something done if we can. What were some of the biggest things that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that?
Oh, well, it was when I first jumped into it, it was an eye-opening experience for me because, we jumped into, we have systems for really just about anything. Anything from balancing the safe to mopping the floors to, the bathrooms to, to what we do with waste chicken. It's system. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn because I remember at the very beginning, I was really struggling with some things. And of course, I went back to what I always do. And I said, who's the best owners in the chain? And I asked the home office that, and they told me. And so I went to them and I said, look, I need to learn from you, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm stealing every idea that you have.
Nice.
and you'd be surprised how many people are graciously will give it to you. And I've learned over the years that I never want to reinvent the wheel. Right. So I'll always ask them, hey, do you have a template for this? And they give it to me and I can modify it. But I would go into their stores and I would learn about what the best people do. And I was watching how, when I was struggling as an early owner where I would have money missing on a regular basis, he would say, well, here's what I do. We balance it at this time of day and we count their money as soon as they're done with their shift. And some of those were new concepts to me.
Interesting. So what's interesting about this is that at times one can feel like because they have an exposure to a certain industry, because you worked there for how many years first?
I had worked at Chick-fil-A for about 4 years, McDonald's for 2 years before I even became an owner.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We can feel like because we've had exposure to an industry, we go, oh, I know what to do, or I know that. I know a number of people, whether they're property managers, they've been leasing agents, they are, the construction people, they're like, hey, I know real estate, I can, fix walls. Yeah, that's wonderful. You know that part. But that one part is not the entire system. And even when you're there, you don't pick it up from osmosis until you're on that other side.
That's correct. And the other part about that is, what if the person was trained wrong? I can't tell you how many.
Wow.
Sometimes I'll bring people in from either other fast food places or sometimes even Chick-fil-A, and the process that they were using somewhere else might have been flawed. And so it doesn't end up working with us.
Interesting. I wasn't even thinking about that, correcting a wrong training situation. So when it comes to so now I've got to ask the question because somebody's going to email me if I don't. How on earth do you come from working there to having the money to buy one?
Okay, so years ago, the cost to own a Chick-fil-A is only years ago, it was only $5,000.
Okay, I'm writing a check. No,
all right, absolutely. So it was only $5,000. Nowadays, it's $10,000. But before everybody starts writing checks, as Dan Cathy is one of my mentors, and one of the things that he says is that it's easier to get into the CIA than it is Chick-fil-A.
What?
They get 20,000 applications a year to fill about 60 spots.
That's worse than any college. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah. I'm listening.
It's crazy. I mean, and some of that is, at the very starting process where people fill out an application online and then they have a vetting process. And then it strategically gets harder and harder. But, the thing is with Chick-fil-A is they want to have the best person in there. And there's so many people wanting to be a Chick-fil-A operator that Chick-fil-A gets the opportunity to be very, very, very picky. And so it's kind of a joke that they say, we look for the fastest way to tell somebody no.
Right.
Because they want to get them on with their life. I mean, if Chick-fil-A isn't it's not made for everybody. And they come in and like, even for myself, I have a lot of people that come in and say, I want to work for you as a manager because I want to learn about Chick-fil-A so I can go on with Chick-fil-A. And I've had people come in and they just couldn't make it work.
Wow. Interesting. And what's really interesting to me is that says a lot about the brand when there's that much demand for very few spots. It says a lot about everything from the top down, and not only the quality of the systems, etc. I can tell you I wasn't expecting a number as low as 10 grand. That's for sure. But yet that also says that it's really not about the money. There's something else in the filtering process. So what would you say is like the thing, if someone's listening right now and thinks, because we haven't talked about franchising much, at all. And so what would you say from the person listening right now, if they were like, hey, I want to build cash flow, but maybe real estate isn't their thing. It's not what they want to do. They want to have a business, but maybe they're lacking a business idea. And I think this is a place where franchising can come in. What would you say are some of those benefits and things that, like, yeah, this is why this is who franchising is for? Okay. Well, you probably want to be in business. That's why you listen. And that's great. And I think it's awesome that you want to take some unique product or service or your unique abilities and put it out there into the marketplace. Please do. Now, understand that there are many different types of business models out there. For example, just because you say you want to be in the restaurant business, that doesn't mean you're going to own a restaurant. You could actually, as a direct owner, you could own it as a franchise. Maybe, and maybe somewhere there's a network marketing restaurant. I don't know, but you could still be in business without having to have a certain type of business model. Just keep that in mind. Just because you're in retail, just because you're in distribution, you could do things in a very, very different way. And the business model, each one of them, has many pluses and many different minuses. So just look at that as you go through the process of putting together what it is you think is going to be the best business plan for yourself. If you want some ideas on how to do this in real estate, of course, feel free to go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. That's cashflowdiary.com/free book, and grab a copy of my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. And that will give you some of my best ideas and business model. Nonetheless, let's get back to it.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, first of all, it's very unique anyway because the franchise agreement, the operator agreement that they have is very unique in and of itself. And they want you to be working in the restaurant. They want me to be there in the restaurant making sure that that things are right. And so it's not the traditional franchise that somebody could come and purchase it and then get it started and then run off and go spend their time opening other franchises. They want you to be in there all the time. And that's one of the reasons that when you go into stores, they have such a high level of excellence. Chick-fil-A actually says that we strive for perfection, but we'll settle for excellence.
Got it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And so by those owner operators being in that location, they're there all the time. And if you look at some of those franchises that struggle, or that you walk in and don't get the quality that you want or the experience that you want, take a look at where the managers are. Generally the managers that are running that are just hired managers that actually don't ever know who the owner is.
That's an interesting concept right there. So you're saying keeping it close to the vest is probably what allows them to maintain that quality in various different ways. Now, let me ask you this then. So you're basically, does anybody own like 10 or 20 of these things? Because that would be really tough to do with that as a requirement.
Yeah. The most stores that an owner has at this point is 3.
Okay.
And they're studs. I tell you, there's a lot involved, but it's not as simple as just owning 3. The locations need to be somewhat close to each other, where they're marketing to the same people. Like the 2 locations that I have, they're right in between, believe it or not, a high school. It's called Union High School, and that's the high school that I went to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when we talk about, a local rags to riches story, that's me. And so when I'm going around town and doing speaking and other stuff, I can literally say, hey, I went to high school right there. But when I'm marketing or when I'm recruiting, I can walk right into the high school because I know everyone there, and I can recruit for both my stores. I can market to both my stores. And so, that's kind of one of the things that they're looking for. If I had another store on the far side of town, I'd probably have to adjust my way of marketing.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to get the leverage with the same marketing dollar is basically what I'm hearing. So, okay.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So when it comes to just being a franchise owner in and of itself, is there anything that you think that when you think about other business models out there where you go, this business model in general, whether it's Chick-fil-A or not, is superior for these reasons?
I apologize. Are you asking me if I'm thinking of any other franchises out there?
No. I'm just saying not necessarily franchises, any other franchises. I'm trying to figure out what are the superior aspects from the insiders from your vantage point. What do you think a franchise has as an advantage over other business models?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just the level of accountability.
Oh, what do you mean?
Yeah. So let's start with, like a Chick-fil-A versus others. We have the owner operator that is accountable to the expectations and the recipes and the other things that the Chick-fil-A Incorporated puts out there. Well, because I'm in the store all the time, they come right to me to get the problem solved. But on top of that, on top of just the corporate expectations, they also put different things in there. They provide us with tools to make sure that the accountability that it's happening. For example, we have on a regular basis, they actually kind of expect on a regular basis that we're doing an internal survey of our quality of food, of our employees, of how our store looks, and we actually have a process that we can go through, and I can have my team members go through and inspect all those things, and that's weekly.
Got it.
Then on top of that, Chick-fil-A Incorporated also has somebody come out every quarter, and they come and kind of do an external audit of almost the exact same things. Then on top of that, we do customer surveys on a regular basis, and I kid you not, almost every time, if I look at the customer surveys and what the customers are saying, I can do kind of a cross-reference and look at what my scores are saying from either the corporate office or inside my store, and they're always close to the same. For example, if my taste of my product wasn't right, I could look and say, well, that makes sense because we haven't been meeting the timer expectations here.
Wow.
So it's pretty detailed, but I think that's one of the reasons that makes Chick-fil-A franchise, and there's many other franchises like that. And here's one that's not a franchise, Quick Trip.
Quick I don't know what that one is.
So Quick Trip is a gas station chain. They're based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they have phenomenal hot dogs. I have to say.
Okay.
But they have a great it's a great gas station, and a lot of people in the area compare Chick-fil-A to Quick Trip's customer service. Well, their customer service over there is phenomenal because they have very stringent accountability.
Interesting.
They pay their managers very high to so that they can expect those things, and then they have someone come in and do mystery shops on the regular basis. Then they have someone come in and do mystery shops over the mystery shoppers.
Wow.
And so it's just that multiple levels of accountability. And if you look at any really good, successful franchise, it's those that have those multiple levels of accountability in there. And what's funny is there's a number of people that say, I don't want that. So they back away from those franchises because they say, oh, I want a little bit more flexibility. But yet, really the ones that are super successful are the ones that have those levels.
Got it. Totally understood. Now, I just want to make sure I heard something right, though. Did you say you get to do internal quality control of the food? Does that mean you get to eat the chicken?
Absolutely. Every day I have to walk through and eat every single product.
Oh, that's painful. That's just horrible right there. I don't even know what I'm going to do. So what, other than the accountability, is there any, because now that I'm listening to it, I'm like, okay, cool. Lots of checks and balances. That makes sense. What would you say would be any other advantages of being a franchise owner versus any other form of business?
Well, I think one of the things for the franchise owners, it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, but the home office can provide you artwork, or if you're trying to do some marketing, there's always there's always someone out there that can give you some assistance. Mom and pop places, you kind of got to make everything from scratch, and it saves a lot of time when you can just go into a program and say, hey, I need that, and I need that, and I need that. And that really does make a big difference.
Interesting. Okay. Got it. So would you say the home office does the heavy lifting, or the franchise owner does the heavy lifting?
I think on a high level, the home office does. But then what they do is they provide these opportunities for us to bring it down to a local level. For example, you had mentioned about my Guinness World Records.
Yes.
So, for example, there's no protocol from Chick-fil-A to set a Guinness World Record.
No, but you did it. Now I understand why it was sweet tea.
That's right. And so there's kind of a joke at the home office, and my accountant one time told me, Arthur, we kind of laugh about you sometimes, and said there's either a rule made because of Arthur Greeno, or about to be a rule made because of Arthur Greeno.
Yeah. Okay. I get it though.
Yeah. And so when I first called them about the Guinness World Record, they didn't know what to do with me, that somebody was, believe it or not, at my doorstep 24 hours later wanting to talk to me about my idea.
You want to do what? Yeah. Okay. Got it. Now, for those that are wondering, can you tell them what the world record's about? Because they don't know yet.
Yeah. So I did a couple of different Guinness World Records. The very first one was the world's largest lemonade.
Oh, okay.
And, Chick-fil-A has this phenomenal fresh squeezed lemonade. And
it does.
The secret is lemon juice, water, and sugar. Now some people may think we mix some drugs in there a little bit, but no, that's it. Just those three ingredients.
Yeah. Yep. I get it. And how big was the lemonade?
It was, it ended up being 840 gallons.
Wow.
And we had to squeeze 100,000 lemons in order to make it happen.
Okay. And for those wondering why you would do this, I know that I'm curious to hear what brought about the idea, and how did that impact your business?
Well, it really started because I have 6 kids. And, we're talking about Guinness World Records, and they're saying, Dad, they're looking at me, like any young kid would, looking at their dad and saying, he can do anything. Dad, you should do some of these Guinness World Records. And they're opening this book that has this guy with like 4 feet long, fingernails, or laying on a bed of nails. And I'm kind of going, let's do something in my wheelhouse.
Right.
And so I said, well, is there anything food related? And so we started kind of talking about that and started saying, well, could we pull this off? And so it kind of started as a joke. But then as I started thinking about it, I was like, well, why can't we pull it off? And then I started realizing we can pull it off. It's going to take some work. And so that's what we did. And I started with, I needed a giant cup. I needed a 9-foot cup. And so I was driving all over Tulsa and walking in with a Chick-fil-A cup saying, can you make this? And I went to a plexiglass place, and I went to a plastics company, and I even went to a big place that did barrels. I was like, you think we can make a giant barrel? And they're like, no, not that big. And everyone looked at me like I was, crazy, but I had been, looked at like I've been crazy, from when I was in high school with a back brace on, trying to run track with a back brace on.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm used to it. So it's no big deal for me. And then I'm driving down the road and I look off to the side. And I think when it comes to being creative, a lot of people think creative people just come up with these ideas just instantaneous. I think sometimes we need to start the idea and let it kind of sit there and fester, and then an opportunity will come forward. And for me, I looked out and I saw this 45,000 gallon pool that was made out of fiberglass. And I thought, well, if they can do a fiberglass pool that big,
sure.
Why can't they do a cup? So I drove to this fiberglass place and I went in there and you know how on all the James Bond movies and movies that they have spy gadgets, there's this little wormy guy in the back that has really thick glasses and he's like, oh, we can do this. I walked in and there's a guy like that. I'm thinking, that's cool.
Yes.
And so I set the cup down and I said, I want this, but I want it 9 feet tall. And he didn't say a word. He just got out his pen and his paper and started sketching and then doing all these calculations that I didn't know anything about. I didn't do very well in school and in math. And so after a couple minutes, he slides it forward and says, yep, we can do it.
That's funny. Okay.
So I said, okay, well then let's do it. And he came up with some ideas, like we had to put a liner in there to make it food safe. And so that's actually when I called Chick-fil-A and they decided to, hop on a plane and come talk to me about my idea. But then what I learned over the years is when you want to do something big, people want to be a part of it. Everyone wants to be a part of something big. A lot of people just don't know how to do it. Right. And so we started going through the routine of, I started reaching out to Sunkist and they donated all the lemons. And I reached out to the sugar company and they donated all the sugar. And so here I am creating this thing. It's going to cost me nothing. And so then, how are we going to squeeze these lemons? So I got about 10 lemon squeezers from the Chick-fil-A corporate office and borrowed them. And then we had a contest for my crew, kind of like Tom Sawyer did, where he made everybody do the work. I made them all squeeze lemons.
That's funny. Okay, yeah, I was actually wondering. I was like, I was waiting to hear, how did you squeeze all these lemons?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they squeezed them and they enjoyed it. And we gave away free Chick-fil-A for a year to the team that could squeeze the lemons the fastest. And, we knocked it out. And I had Guinness World Record come in and we poured in the lemon juice and poured in the water and poured in the sugar. And Guinness World Record came out and that was our first world record.
Now, how do you mix it together, or did you have to make the world's largest blender or something too, or?
Well, we didn't have to, but we did.
Of course.
You tend to be like the people you surround yourself with, right? So I ended up, I have a lot of creative friends around me, and so we got together and we made some giant tools that would go on the edge of, on the end of some power tools that would help us whip this thing up, and that's what we did, and it worked, and we mixed it all real good, and then we're looking at this saying, what do we need to do with the lemonade? I'm going to have 800 gallons of lemonade. I'm just going to open up the drain and pour it down the drain.
Right.
So I called the local organization, which I'm on the board now, and it's called Little Lighthouse, and there's a school for disabled children, kind of a preschool for them. And I said, I would like to do a lemonade stand for you.
Nice.
And of course, they jumped on board, and we just, unlike a normal lemonade stand, we literally sold lemonade by the gallon all over the city.
Yeah.
And we ended up raising about $10,000 for them.
Wow. This is awesome. This is awesome. Okay. That is out of the box creative. I'm assuming there was marketing value for the store or stores as well. Yes.
Oh yeah, we got all kinds of. The press loved it. We had them all come out, and we kept that cup at Chick-fil-A for quite a while. People would come up and take pictures with it, and it was a lot of fun.
So much so that you had to do it again.
Well, we had to do it again because China broke our world record.
No.
They made some weird honey blueberry drink. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that that's what they did. And so we set a new one for the world's largest sweet tea because Chick-fil-A, that's another item that people think we put drugs in.
Yeah.
And we made the tea, and we kind of did it similar to the same way. I called everybody up, said, "Who wants to be a part of this?" And they jumped in, and we had to do some creative things, like we had to make a 92-pound bag of tea.
Okay.
So we actually had to sew together filters until we could put all this tea in there. And then we put the tea in there and the hot water in there and steeped it for the right time. And then we had to use a fire truck with an extending ladder to lift up the bag out of there, because once it got waterlogged, it was probably about 700 pounds.
Wow. And
we got done with that. And then we added in about 2,500 pounds of sugar.
Wow.
And water and ice, and we're able to achieve the Guinness World Record again.
And for everyone listening, how big was that one?
This one was I was actually able to use the same cup, but I was able to get more made. So this one had 1,140 gallon lemonade, or I'm sorry, sweet tea.
And how did you have a sweet tea stand this time? What did you do with it?
We did, but we didn't sell as much of it. It was 106 degrees that day in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh,
and so we ended up with probably about a third of the container left. And here's the funny part is we drained it down where we could, and we closed up for the night because it was the end of the night. And I came up at 6 a.m. the next morning, and I'm not a big drinker, but I know that when somebody orders a margarita, they put salt around the edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I looked at this giant tea in the morning, I'm looking up at it 10 feet high, and there's this rim around it. I'm thinking, what is in that rim? And as I got closer and closer, I realized it was bees.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds and thousands of bees.
Okay.
And so if any one of the news cameras would have been out there that morning filming me as I'm trying to spray all these bees to get off the cup, it was quite amusing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. And again, I'm assuming that also helped marketing as well. You have a creative way of making things happen, and you don't really look at where you are as a reason why you can't get somewhere else. Where would you say that thought process was developed?
Well, a lot of it was the basic need of I don't like where my life is. I want to be somewhere else. And we didn't have the resources to do that. I didn't have the mentors in my life to do that. There was a lot of things that we just lacked because of our financial, because of the mentality of my parents, a number of things. And so I had to get very, very resourceful in order to make it happen. And so it's kind of a term that the term that I like to use is called, am I living remarkably? Am I living in a way that people are going to remark about it?
That's a good question.
So that's one of the big things that kind of I throw out there when I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I demonstrate, how are you living remarkably? How are you living your life and business remarkably? How are you marketing remarkably? How are you living as a boss remarkably? How are you living as a parent remarkably, as a spouse? Anything from, for example, we like to put live alligators in my pool and let the kids swim with them.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I mean, I think I heard the words. I just want to make sure that you said what I think you said.
Yes. I said I like to put live alligators in our swimming pool, and then we have a swimming pool party, and we swim with the alligators.
Okay.
And so what we do is we alligators can't open their mouths very easily, so we duct tape them shut, and then we swim around with the alligators. And it's one of those things that every year we do this. We've probably done this for about the last 4 or 5 years, and it's a big deal. It's a big party that we have, and everybody comes over, and kids get to overcome their fears, or they get to sit there and say, "There's no way I'm doing that."
Right? Yeah. Totally understood. Totally understood. Any disclosures involved for attending this party?
Yeah, I have to be careful about what I post on Facebook.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Got it. So for those that have listened this far and are intrigued either by your business philosophy, creative marketing, and or just figuring out for themselves, how they might be able to finally get themselves in the game, they probably want to get more from you. They want to know more about what goes on in your brain. What's going to be the best way for them to follow, to find out, and to grab more of what you have to share?
Sure. Well, I do have a website. It's arthurgreeno.com.
Okay.
And so I have a website that kind of goes into stuff. But just like you, and just like with a lot of people, you are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, or on LinkedIn. And, I do a blog, and I put, it's fun to do a blog because I'm always having these crazy stories of things I've done. And so I'll put it in writing and put it out there and say, here's some life lessons to learn about, when you're putting alligators in the pool, what to look for in case you ever needed it.
In case you ever needed it. Indeed. Okay. Excellent. And where's the blog?
My blog is on my website, arthurgreeno.com, or we've been able to recently start posting it on LinkedIn.
Oh, got it. Excellent. Okay. So as we wrap up here, I've got one question because I don't even know what your answer is going to be. I think it's going to be great though. So let's pretend for a second that someone listening is standing in front of the superhero outfit store. They're thinking, man, I want to do this entrepreneur thing, but I'm not really sure. Or, it tends to happen anytime we want to step into something bigger than our current place. We want to reach for something great. We are often accompanied with that voice, and they hear that voice right now every day, Arthur, and they want to be able to move forward, but that voice is always there. And for some of those people, they're related to that voice. What would you say to that person if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they would actually do what you suggested?
What would I tell them?
Yep.
I would tell them that you need to go for it. I mean, because one of my friends uses the term pre-quitting, and that's when you quit before you even start.
Wow, I like it. 3 times it's his. We're going to use that one now. No pre-quitting allowed. This is a no pre-quitting zone.
That's right.
I like it 100%. Well, I definitely want to take this time to say thanks. Thank you for taking the time to educate us about, as I've said before, one of the best food places I know, as well as creative ways to go about doing business, whether that be a 9-foot tall cup of lemonade or tea, or just figuring out that any obstacles that we may be presented with don't actually have to stop us. So thank you for taking the time to be here today.
It's my pleasure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? Well, today that simply means move. Because you've heard again that action is totally necessary. And don't tell me you can't be creative, because I've never heard of a 9-foot tall cup of lemonade or tea, but today we did. And we even turned that into a life lesson, because who knows, maybe one day you want to swim with alligators too. Here's the point. Make something happen today. It's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.